So here's the roll cage. You can see obviously it's a safety devices one. We've got a 6-point roll cage on this one. So we've got door bars and the roof bar. We ain't decided if we're going to add any more to that yet or get it. So we're just going to get it in first, and then if we need to add any more to it, we will. But it's an MSA compliant roll cage, so we can actually go racing with it if we want. It's passed loads of scrutineering in the past, as you can see. So as long as it's fitted properly, we should be able to use it for anything from track days to hill climbs, and we have safety in mind. So I'm going to bolt this together outside the car just to make sure it all lines up and it hasn't been in a knock, and then we're going to get it in the car, start welding some foot plates in and get it fitted. Right, so here we go. I've just bolted it all together, got all the door bars on, etc. I've mounted it with some new hardware. So these are 8.8 tensile strength bolts, which are MSA compliant, allows us to pass regulations. So I've just done some checks, measurements, and made sure that the cage wasn't bent. They hadn't been in a crash. I was assured it wasn't in a crash before we bought it. I went to check anyway, and it's all straight. Everything matches out good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the rear part of the cage in the car so I can mock up. I can draw up where the foot plates are going to sit. That way I can get the rear bolted in, mock up the front. I can then get these foot plates mocked in as well. You can see they're 3-bolt. So these go to the rear turrets. Obviously they're 2-bolt, and the foot plates are all 3-bolt, so they go to the floor. Door bars are unboltable, which makes it nice, so you can take them out if you want, or you can have pins going through them so you can just pull them up and down, so it's not hard to get in the car. So let's get about mocking this up. So just before I took the roll cage apart, I just thought I'd put a seat in there just to see how it looks and see what headroom we're going to have between the seat. Obviously when you're wearing a helmet it's a lot higher. We've got head restraints on this. They're the solid head restraints for the helmets. Obviously we're running 3-inch harnesses. These are 4 points, but they can easily be converted to a 5-point with a crutch harness. They've got the quick release harness as well, so when you're upside down you can get out nice and quickly. So I thought I'd give you a quick show of these seats because I haven't showed you them in many clips. So I've just mounted the roll cage in the car just to see where the foot plates go, and anything we need to move out of the way. So this side, obviously we've got that handle up on the roof, that's got to be moved for that front part of the cage. I've already removed this side already, so we have to take out the sun visors as well. We're going to get some clips and we're going to mount them to the roll cage support anyway. Obviously we've got the door bars as well, they fit nicely. This is the roll cage hoop that goes across the top. This bolts across the top here, and then we're going to mount these sun visors to it, because obviously you can't do nothing with these sun visors. We need a little bit of modifications to this glove box, but obviously we've got the Cosworth ECU in there anyway, so there's not much going on. Needs a little bit of trimming like I've done on my old RS Turbos, and you can see here it nicely fits against the dash, so with no cutting of the dash, so we don't have to chop up anything. So the mounting points, luckily we've got all this strength back in the floor pans now, so we can mount this to the floor. But what I'm going to do is we're going to weld in some nice thick 3mm steel, so that these foot plates, when you're upside down and your roof's crushing in, these don't just pop straight through the floor, because these floor pans are only 1mm thick from stock, and regulations say that you need to at least have 3mm of thickness there. So obviously we've got nice strength in the seals, nice strength in the floor pans now, same across that side. So we're going to join the metal into the seals and into the floor pans and get a nice load of strength in there to strengthen the shell up. Right, so now to making the foot plates for the roll cage. What I've just done is I went onto MSA's website just to find out their minimum specs for their foot plate requirement size, and it's 120 centimetres squared. So what I've done is I've done some calculations, worked that out. I've marked it up on some cardboard, and then obviously I've cut it out into some 3mm sheet steel. So the minimum requirements for the steel is 3mm. So obviously just marked it up, cut it out with a grinder. So we're going to get that in, and what we're going to do is going to make up some side sections as well, because the panel has got to be flat and the cage has got to be bolted to a flat surface. So the obvious reason why you can't mount the cage straight to the floor pan is because the floor pan is 1mm thick. You can see how nice and thick this 3mm steel is. It's going to provide a ton of strength, and it's a spreader plate. It spreads out the load. So you can see here how they're going to fit. Obviously you see the section that I've just made up in the last video. I'm going to have to just wire brush some of this seam sealer out so I can weld to it, and then this is going to sit underneath that cage. You can see it doesn't sit flush to the floor anyway. Obviously that's going to sit up against the sill nice and tight, which I've got to move the cage to do. And then they're just going to make some sections up here, because you can see it doesn't touch the floor pan, and that way the cage is going to be nice and flush to the floor pan with all the strength of the sill and the back section. Right, you can see here now, obviously I've removed the roll cage, so I can get to the footing plates a lot easier. Obviously I marked them out, you see I marked them out with marker pens, so I know exactly where they're going to go. What I've done is I've got a grinder on a wire wheel, and the seam sealer and all the paint and the primer that I put on before in this corner, obviously I've stripped that back down to bare metal so we can weld to it. In here I've die grinded it all so it's nice and flush in the inside here, so this plate goes right into the corner so we can weld all along the back part here and all along where this floor pan meets the sill, so we've got maximum strength. Obviously this is made out of 3mm steel, so it's nice load of strength in there. I've tacked it already so it's just in place in the box section. You can see how it obviously slits nice and flush along the floor pan there, and it's the same along the back as well. And then when the foot plates are in, obviously I'm going to weld along here a bead all the way round. So I've just brought it inside so you can see exactly what I'm talking about under better light. Obviously I've left a gap there so I can run a nice strong bead of metal and weld along there. You can see it's just nicely tacked in place, and you can see how it obviously contours against the floor pan. And all I've done is I've used to shave that down, I just used a grinding wheel and cut it to like a triangular shape, and then just kept grinding it down, fitting it, grinding it down, fitting it. It takes a long time, but you can see the strength that's going to be in that foot plate. Right, so now we're going to move on to the front floor section plate for the roll cage. So you see in the previous video we put in this nice fixed strengthening plate into the sill, and it's a good job we did, because this floor plate is going to be welded straight to that sill for loads of strength. It's obviously going to be running straight along here with straight to the floor pan. But the quickest way I've found on making different sections up is just out of paper. I use paper templates, and then I cut it out of metal, give it a little bit of shaping, and then you tack it in. So that's how it's going to look, the plate. You can see how much it's raised off the floor. I can get my finger underneath it. So we're going to get that section made up and tacked in there. So there you go. Obviously I've just used that template that I made up, and I've cut out the metal, and you can see I've obviously tacked it in place. Now we've got loads of strength there, attaches to the floor, so I'll be able to weld along the floor, weld along that sill. Obviously now I've just got to make this section along the back. It's a bit hard to show you, but you can see it's a little bit more difficult, but shouldn't take a little bit of cutting, should be a problem. So just shaped up that little bit of paper to mock up the next bit of metal. This is for the side section I just showed you. So I'm going to trace this out onto the steel now and cut it out. So a little tip when you're cutting out metal, always try and use the corners that you've got, and it just saves you, like I've saved 2 cuts here. So I'm just going to put that into that corner like that where I've cut before, and all I've got to do then is cut that bend shape, and it just saves you an extra 2 cuts. So I've only got to do 1 cut now. There we go, all cut out. So the easiest way to cut these out is obviously just cut it out further than it needs on a bend, because you ain't going to be able to do it with a flat grinder. And then obviously just take it to the bench, and you just be able to shape it like that. I've just mocked it up against the car, fits perfectly, so we're going to get that tacked on. So there we go, just put it in the car, tacked it on. You can see the shape of the seal on it. The shape of the seal that runs down the edge. It's a bit tapered, and it fits in there nicely. So that's how it sits in the car. So it's nice and strong, sits to the floor. Well, you can see how that bit fits along the sill like that now. Right, so just started up the plate on the passenger side. It's been a bit difficult to film because it's a bit damp out, so everything's steaming up. But you can see here, obviously I've shaped the metal exactly like the sill. It sits lovely. And the back side as well, just tack that in. Obviously this is going to be joined together, so just got to do the back side now. I'm going to get to shaping it up. So look at this lovely little surprise I just found. So obviously I'm making up this foot plate over here. I've just stripped down the paint over this side, and I decided to get rid of the seam sealer because it wouldn't sit flush to the sill, and now I know why, because look how raised it is. And I found this little gem. Look at that, that's a previous repair. I thought I got rid of everything, but no, this was hidden. So obviously you can see it spread up there a little bit. It's not going to happen to the sill, luckily. So I should be able to just cut that out. So I'm going to have to do some more repairs. Obviously this is how it should look, which I've done before with the lip. Obviously I just stripped the sealer off of that so I can weld to that. So I better go on with cutting that out and getting it done. I've only made 3 plates up yet, because you just see why. I've got to repair that floor pan on the 4th side, and then I can make the plate up for that. So in the meantime, it's raining out, so I thought I'll bring these into the garage and get these welded up now, and then I'm going to show you how they look after they're welded. You can see they're all different designs, different shapes. You can see them a bit clearer out of the car. So not any plate is the same. So there was no template to make, so I just had to make them all custom. So I've got the cat in here being needy. Don't know why she's being needy today. She's like my apprentice. Follows me everywhere I go, watches all my work. Right, there you have it. So the plates are all welded up. Well, 3 of them are anyway, because obviously you see I've got to do that floor pan first before I can mock up the 4th plate. Obviously I've put a lot of heat in here, you can tell. You can see the discoloration about 1/4 of the way into the metal. But I've also put a lot of material in there as well. Loads of strength, but just to overdo it, because I like to overdo things, I stitch welded it inside of the panel as well. Put a bit of material in the corners as well, just for a bit of extra strength. So this is the bit I'm talking about when I say that people just slap sealer over everything. So obviously this looks like a bit of floor pan here, doesn't it? Obviously, just pull that bit of sealer up. There you go. Now you can see a hole. So you have to wire wheel some of this off. See what we find under there. I'm assuming it's not going to be good, but it's got to be cut out. So there you go, I've just stripped the sealer off it. I knew it wouldn't be good under there. You can see what's happened now. The original floor pan, which is this one, is rotted out on this corner, but the metal is actually quite good, you can see it. And then what they've done is they went inside the car and then they've welded a thick plate over the top of it. You can see that there's the weld marks from the original plate that they welded over it. But because this is such a gunky weld and nasty weld, it's just rotted away the metal around it. So they've actually done a worse job by patching it up. Then they could have just cut this out, done it properly, and it would look good. So let's get it cut out and do it properly. Right, so I've already got on with cutting it out. Just trying to see what we're dealing with here. We've got some weird repair on the inner sill. Got to deal with that, and then obviously make up that back section again, just like we did on this part with the lip here and it into the rear seat panel. So going to get on with that, going to shape up some metal, going to remove that little bit of metal that's in the inner sill and any of the other corrosion. So we've got back to a nice solid metal. Let's start making the parts. So this is the lovely section I just cut out. You can see why I'm not leaving that in there. Loads of welds joined together, bits of panels joined together. None of this is original. So if they'd just done it properly in the first place, we wouldn't even have to cut it out, because it looks like the welded section is the bit that's rotted out. This is the original floor pan, which is still pretty good. I mean, it's rotted on that corner, but how easy is that repair? Instead of just slapping over a repair panel over the top out of 2mm thick steel. Done it properly and we wouldn't be here in the first place. So I've just pulled this section out the sill, well, cut it out the sill, and look at this repair. So they've had, obviously the inner sill is started rotting away. I don't know why they just ain't cut it out, so instead of cutting it out, they just welded over the top of it. Just give you a quick look. So that was why that corner was so manky, because it was just like slapped on loads of welds. You can see this metal went all the way out to here. Obviously I cut it here, but then I realised it went further, so I've chopped that out, going to make a new sill section as well. So I've just cut out that sill section. You can see here, obviously that rust was nasty. So now I've got back to fresh metal, making up that sill. Going to do a bit of a spot weld so it joins to the outer sill, get a bit of strength in there. So let's get to welding that in. Just got the welder out, going to tack that in now. So I've just welded in a sill, obviously just tacked it in at the minute. Obviously made up this section as well here. If you look at the sill, I've plugged it all along the outer sill, so it's got loads of strength in there now. You can see how they've done the sill before, is they've lipped it upwards, which is a nightmare, which means it's not going to look as good as the other side. But I've made up a section for it already. That's going to go in there. Just got to make up a little bit of a panel that goes across this side, and then I can weld it all together, and should be good. So you can see that panel I've made up there. It took a little bit of shaping up to make. It's going to sit in there nicely. And then I'm just going to make up this lip that goes from the seat panel across here, just like I did on the other section. And then that should have all the strength back in it then, and I can make up the foot plate for the roll cage. So there you go, another job done. So you can see here, obviously I've welded the sill straight into the floor pan, put a load of material in there so we've got loads of strength, because obviously the foot plate's sitting on here. It's only tack welded along here at the minute. Obviously I've got to fill it in. You can see what I've done along the same section as I've done at the other side. I've put that lip that goes into the rear seat panel. That's gone along there. I've put 3 plug welds in there for a nice bit of strength. I've welded it up all the way up the sill as well. So I've just got to fill in this material here. Back loads of strength back in there. So now we can mock up the foot plate and get the roll cage bolted in. There you go, that's all welded up. Run the bead all the way round. What I tend to do, because it's only 1mm thick steel, is probably the worst steel you can try and work with. if you're running with 3mm, 4mm steel all day, it's easy to work with. So what I normally do is I just put a multiple tacks all the way around in sequence, just one after the other, and I turn up the wire speed quite high, because the worst thing you can do is blow through. As long as you're getting good penetration, it's coming through to the other side, that's all good. And you can just grind down the welds if you get them too high, and you can grind them flat. But the main thing is get some heat into it. You've got to stick the welds together, you've got to stick the metal together. It's no good having a pretty weld if it's not strong. So as if by magic, the fourth section's made up, so I've just tacked that in place. So that's aiming to sit like that. You can see obviously it goes up the sill nicely like that, so I'm just going to get that up onto the bench now, weld it up, and then that can go and sit in there nice and tight for the cage footplate to sit on. So that's the 4 footplates made up, so they're all welded up. You can see obviously I've put a bit of strength on the inside like I showed you as well. That way there's no chance of these moving. I've put a lot more weld in that one as well, because it's a bit thinner metal. So we're going to have to get these joined in now. So I've got the great task of joining 3mm steel to 1mm steel and not blowing holes in it. So that's going to be fun. So let's get some of these welded in. So this is what the footplates are going to look like when they're in. I've just managed to run a bead along there already. I've put a lot of metal in there as well. So I've attached it to both sides, which is quite a difficult job, because you can't put no heat through the 1mm steel. You just got to run the pull of weld over and put all the heat into the 3mm steel. So let's get the rest of them done. So this is how the footplate looks when it's in. I've run a bead along both sides already. The bit along the seat pan and the sill are going to be welded in afterwards. What I want to do is put the cage in so I can drill the holes. So I'm going to move on to this side now, get this side welded in the same along the floor, and then we're going to drill the holes for the roll cage plates. So I want to get the roll cage in to do that, and that's just basically centralise the plates so that they ain't going to move about now while I drill the holes. Right, so this is the moment of truth. So I've just put the cage back in the car so I can make sure the foot plates are all where I want them, and be able to bolt to the floor. So an issue I had obviously was this car's got a sunroof, so look at the clearance. So I had to properly measure them foot plates out. So it wasn't too high, but they're sitting there perfectly now. So eventually we will cut that out and we're going to put a carbon roof on it. The foot plates sitting in there perfectly, you can see. So going to mark them up for the bolt holes, and then mark the struts up for the rear turrets for the bolt holes, and then I can get to drilling them, and then we can get that rear cage mounted in. But I'm going to leave it loose for now, get these front foot plates mounted in, and then we can bolt it all together. So let's get on with it. So I've just loosely fitted the front part of the roll cage. You can see I've put the roof bar in as well. It's all nothing's bolted up, but you can see why I had to put the foot plates in now for the extra spreading of the load, because this foot plate wouldn't have sat on this sill properly. You can see the profile. Obviously this has been bent down by the previous owner, so I'll flatten it out. So what we're going to do is just going to move these, well, they're in position now really, so they're going to sit nice and flush to the sill. They're going to be tack welded in now, and then I'm going to properly weld them in, take the cage back out. You can see on this side it's exactly the same. So you can see the foot plate now sits nice and flush, exactly how we wanted it. All the strength. These foot plates are never going to pop through the floor pan now. So I'm very happy with that. You can see how they've come out, so they're going to be bolted in. And then get the rear turrets bolted in. Right, so all the foot plates are fully welded in. That's been hours and hours of welding now. You can see, obviously I had to join the 3mm box sections to the 1mm section. You can see it's all welded around the back, done properly. This plate as well. So now we can get this roll cage in, bolted in. Finally, this is what all the hard work's come down for. If it weren't for that nasty bit of rust that was down this section here, we would have had this done a long time ago. But So the rear's still in, I've just got to put it in place. They can start drilling the holes. So now it's that time to get the cage bolted in. So I've obviously drilled out the holes already for this side. The bolts normally go from the bottom and the nuts go on the top, but at the minute they're just in there for temporary to hold the cage in while I drill the rest of the holes. I've got some mounting plates made up for these, so basically with these you drill through the turrets, bolt it to the turret, and then a plate goes underneath, and that's the regulations for the MSA, so that's fine. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to mark out the holes for these foot plates, then I'm going to remove the foot plates because it makes it a lot easier to drill. So let's get on with getting them in. Right, so mainly bolted in now, got one more turret to do. You can see how it's going to look. The clearance on the roof is perfect, it's exactly what I wanted. A lot more safety involved now. Obviously the door bars are going to be modded so they can fit on as well, because I've obviously extended the mounts out a little bit so they're not going to fit. And these will be done in the next episode. You can see this rear turret's been done. That one's been marked out to drill, but the cage has got to come out now. So that's the last time you're going to see the cage in this episode. I'm going to prep up these mounting points so that I can paint them, because I don't want them going rusty and rotting. So I'm going to get some longer bolts for them and reverse them round. So let's get this cage back out. So there you can see the roll cage has been removed, and what I've done is I went round, sanded up these foot plates, got any surface rust off them, give them an etch primer, nothing else other than just protect them from the damp conditions, because the winter, you can see up here I've done the turrets, drilled little holes in there. Obviously there's going to be backing plates going on there just to hold them turrets nice and strong, and the roll cage. And I'm going to modify the door bars. You're going to see in the next episode, so subscribe if you haven't already, you're going to see the seats being fitted, the roll cage is going to be bolted in properly and securely. All this wiring is going to be sorted out, and this interior is going to be much tidier, ready for its MOT. So enjoy it.